course, when dealing with technology, quickly never really seems to be an accurate descriptor. Okay, so you will find some resources to help you out with this play in the French Neoclassical Drama folder on the Georgia View website. So we click on French Neoclassical Drama. The first thing we've got here is a video of a production of Tartuffe that aired on the BBC in the early 80s. I chose this one because it's actually got a pretty good cast, it's well acted, it's well done, good production values. We're going to be looking at a sample scene from a less well done amateur production a little bit later, but that I think, I think the one thing that the scene we're going to be looking at in class gets right is that it does reveal an important and often overlooked point in the play. Okay, so there's that. And it's a playlist kind of thing on YouTube, so you'll have to watch, you'll have to let all 8 different parts load, and you'll probably be subjected to some advertising, because God forbid there be any corner of our lives that advertising cannot infect. Consume. Okay, so we've also got here, of course, our tech here being what it is, it's not loading properly on this computer. But, the History Channel, before they were all about running around naked in the wilderness and aliens building the pyramids and all that other shit, yes, they used to actually air good general interest documentaries on history. So this is one that they did on Louis XIV, his life and reign. So this would provide, really good background context for you. I've also got another one of those BBC podcasts for you that discusses the divine right of kings, the history of the theory, what it looked like in practice. It's looking at it mostly from an English perspective. It is, after all, a BBC program, but still useful for thinking about how this played out in France. Right? This is actually a really, really important concept, not just culturally in 17th and 18th century France, but also for this particular play. And I've also got here a couple of essays posted for you to read. The first is by the dramatist Pierre Corneille. He was one of the leading tragedians in France in the 17th century, and he was also a leading drama theorist. And he comes up with the best formulation of what's called the 3 Unities theory, which we'll talk about in a moment. Yes, Ash, you have a question?
What's a tragedian?
A tragedian?
Yeah.
A writer of tragedies.
Ah.
And the other essay that I have posted here for you is actually by Moliere himself. It is the preface that he published alongside Tartuffe in 1669, explaining the purpose of the play and what he felt the purpose of comedy generally ought to be. Okay. So, with that, all right, just turn this off for now, come back to it later. All right, so who wants to start here? Who has questions, comments, observations about this play? Jonathan.
All right, so in my writing, I
Yes.
wrote about how Tartuffe was like symbolizing like the Catholic Church at the time.
Okay.
Yeah. Would you like me to elaborate on that?
I would like you to elaborate on that,
So
yes.
it's like, throughout the story, at the time, like, the Catholic Church looked down on his whole life, basically, because he wasn't part of the theater, and they didn't respect that at all. So I feel like it was his way of, like, telling people, like, the Catholic Church is, like, injustified, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, in a way.
And I think, you're onto something here, right? The religious and cultural politics behind this play are actually really, really complicated, right? Tartuffe was first performed in 1664, but the play that bore that title then is not the same as the play that you read for today. We don't really know for a fact what that play looked like because it was never published and the manuscripts are lost. What we do know is that immediately after it was performed, a very powerful, I guess you would like the equivalent of like a pressure group today in France, called the Company of the Holy Sacrament, demanded that the play be immediately banned. This was a group that wielded a lot of influence at court. And so, the king, Louis XIV, who, what do we remember about Louis XIV and his style of rule?
It was totalitarian. Well, it was absolute.
Yeah, he's an absolutist king, right? So everything in the realm comes down to his decision. So he decided, despite the fact that Moliere was a personal friend of his and was sort of his official court comedian, Louis decided to side, in this case, with the Company of the Holy Sacrament. And the play was banned. So for the next 5 years, Moliere lobbied the king to get the play out of limbo. So he did all sorts of things, altered the plot, altered the structure of the plot, changed the characters around in order to try to make the play more acceptable to those who wanted it banned. All the while complaining that it was really kind of unfair that it was banned and that the people who were complaining about it were completely misinterpreting his intentions. So, for example, we do know that in the earliest version of the play, the character Cléante did not exist. He was added to the play later to try to allay the concerns of the Company of the Holy Sacrament that the play was blasphemous. Right? Cléante is the character who does what in the play? What seems to be his function or his role?
He kind of seems to be the guy that like talks people down, like calms them down, and be more mature about things.
Yeah, he's the reasonable one, right? He's actually a kind of stock character in 17th century French comedy. French drama in the 17th and 18th centuries is actually really, really formulaic in a lot of ways. So what makes a good play or a bad play is essentially how well you're able to work within the existing rules and formula. But Cléante is a type of stock character called a raisonneur. R-A-I-S-O-N-N-E-U-R. Now, what does this sound like to you? If you were going to translate this into English, just based on how it sounds, how would you? Yeah, the reasoner, exactly. And the raisonneur is usually opposed to a character called the imaginaire. I-M-A-G-I-N-A-I-R-E. So, imaginaire sounds to you like...
Imaginer?
Yeah, imaginary. Right? Dreamer. So usually these plays are structured around a character who is completely deluded about something. Right? A character who's living in a kind of fantasy world, who is being talked down or talked out of it by a character who sort of exemplifies logical reasoning. So if Cléante is the raisonneur who is trying to talk someone out of a fantasy, who's the imaginaire here?
Orgone?
Orgone, yes. Right, so the two provide a sort of counterpoint to each other. But yeah, Cléante was added, right, particularly to make those arguments about true religion at various points, right? True religion doesn't, demand things from people in the way that Tartuffe does. Okay. So, we have a very different play by 1669 than we had in 1664. Still largely unacceptable to people like the Company of the Holy Sacrament, but the king seems to get on board with it. Now, you also had a hand up, James. What did you want to talk about or ask about?
I noticed towards the end of the play that it was kind of more for the appeal to comedy, but I noticed that he was very harsh towards his family if they ever questioned him, especially his son specifically. He even kicked him out of the house.
Yeah, and I think this is actually a good place to talk about another particular tradition, 17th century French drama. Right? Most of Moliere's plays are what are called comedies of character. And a comedy of character is one in which each of the characters has some sort of single tick, right? Some kind of single controlling passion or vice or activity. One thing they can't stop saying or doing. Right? So all of the characters are basically one note. They're all types. They're not fully rounded people. So if we had to break these characters down into their types or their particular obsessions, how would we do it? Let's start with sort of the more minor characters, with the family, right? We've got the daughter, Marianne, the son, Damis, the maid, Dorine. What do their sort of controlling fixations seem to be?
Doreen is sassy.
Okay, yeah, Doreen is, sassy would be one word for it, right?
She's a schemer.
She schemes. Why does she get Orgone so angry? I mean, what's her role in the family? What's she supposed to be?
Servant.
She's a servant. Does she do much actual serving, though?
Nope.
Yeah, she does not listen, she does not obey. She doesn't obey Marianne, right? She overturns Marianne's wishes because she understands them better than Marianne does herself. She does not obey Orgone. She does not obey Tartuffe, right? She does not obey the people who are supposed to be socially superior to her in the household, right? So Marianne's controlling idea, right? She's the insubordinate servant. She can't help herself. There's that scene where Orgone tells her to be quiet, and we see her say, like, I can't keep my mouth shut, right? I can't stop talking. I can't stop rebelling. What about Damis, the son? What's his character note?
Yeah, he just tantrums quick, heated.
Yeah, he's angry all the time. He's always yelling and waving his arms around, right? So yeah, his controlling character note is rage. No one takes him seriously because he's always shouting. And what about Marianne? What is the one thing Marianne can't stop doing? Well,
she's essentially spineless.
Yeah, spineless is a way to put it, right?
Well, she's more kind of like damselly weak.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like the kind of person you'd see fainting with the vapors and fanning themselves.
I like that image, yeah. My word, I got a case of the vapors, yeah. But yeah, no, you're right, yeah. I mean, she's obedient to a fault, right?
She kind of wants to please everyone.
Yeah, she wants everyone to be happy except herself, right? And if making herself unhappy makes someone else happy, she'll make herself unhappy, right? So yeah, so she is obedient like crazy, right? She is a distorted caricature of the good, obedient child, right? Now, what about some of these other characters? We've talked a little bit about Cléante here, right? Cléante sees everything through the prism of reason, right? And that's one thing to note about the raisonneur character in a French play. They're actually usually pretty ineffective. They try to reason with the imaginaire, but it almost never works. In part because the raisonneur can't actually enter the imaginaire's world and what is actually causing his delusions. So usually something else, something external has to happen to actually jolt the imaginaire out of his madness. So Cléance, is just reason all the time. And what about Orgone? What is it that Orgone really cares most about? What is his character note?
Following the status quo.
Okay, why would you say following the status quo?
Because like anything that Tartuffe said, like he believed until he like seen it with his own eyes. He would just believe everything that he says.
Okay, yeah, he obsessively follows Tartuffe. He seems to be more interested in Tartuffe than in the members of his own family, right? Yeah, Ash.
I kind of think he's supposed to be this caricature of the good Christian nobleman of the time, because you're always supposed to follow what a holy man says, or like a pastor, or the not pastor, but
yeah. Well, we're talking. This is 17th century French Catholic, so we'd be talking about a priest. Yeah. Although Tartuffe is not a priest, right? In the original version of the play, the 1664 version, we know that the character was dressed as a monk, and that was part of what caused offense. So I think it'll help us get at what Orgone's real issue is if we watch a short scene. So this is from a performance, I guess several years ago now. It's an amateur performance by college students at American University, and it's sort of the seduction scene where Tartuffe is pouring out his love for Elmire, and Orgone is listening under the table. So what I want you to really pay attention to here, what I want you to really focus on is, what is it that finally prompts Orgone to come up from under the table? Right? What is it that he finally can't bear?
The nectar floods my every sense and drains in honey rivulets through all my veins. To please you is my joy, my only joy. Your love is the restorer of my soul. And yet I must beg leave now to confess some lingering doubts as to my happiness. Might this not be a trick? Might not the catch be that you wish me to break off the match with Marianne and still have faith to love me? I shan't quite trust your fond opinion of me, and the feelings you expressed so sweetly are demonstrated somewhat more concrete, and certain kind concessions that I may put my faith in your professions.
Why are you in such a hurry? Must my heart exalt the bounty at the very start? To make that sweet admission cost me dear, but you will not be convinced it would appear until my store of favors is dispersed to the last farthing at the very first.
The less we merit, the less we dare to hope, and with our doubts mere words can never cope. We trust no promise bliss till we receive it, not till a joy is ours. I, who so little merit your esteem, can't think this of knowing of my esteem, and shan't believe it, madam, until I say with some palpable assurance of your favor.
Oh my, how tyrannical your love can be, and how it blusters and perplexes me. How furiously you take one's heart in hand to make your every wish a fierce command. Must you hound and harry me to death? But you give me no time to catch my road. Can it be right to press me with such force? Give me no quarter, show me no remorse, and take advantage by your stern insistence of the fond feeling weakened by resistance.
Well, if you look with favor upon my love, I begrudge some clear proof thereof.
But But how can I consent to an offense to heaven for which you feel such reverence?
If heaven is all that will do that, don't worry. I can remove that influence in a hurry. Nothing that's toward the inside out.
Must one not be afraid of heaven's wrath?
And I will teach you how to come. Yes, heaven is not like earth to compromise. There is a science they formulated whereby one's conscience may be liberated, and a wrongful act you care to mention may be purity of intention. I'll teach you the secrets of that science. Meanwhile, place on me with full reliance. Assuage my keen desires and feel no dread. The sin, if any, shall be on my head. You go back now?
Yes, it's ready.
Licorice may be ready.
I have a stubborn cold, it seems. I'm sure it'll take much more than licorice to cure it. Oh, more than I can say.
No trouble. Think of things this way. No one shall know our joy save us alone. And there's no evil till the act is known. It's scandal, madam, which makes it an offense, and it's no sin to sin in confidence.
Well, forgive me. I must do as you require and yield to your importunate desire. It is apparent now that nothing less will satisfy you, and so I acquiesce. To go so far is much against my will. I guess it to come to this, but still, since you are so determined on it, since you will not allow me or pleasures to convince you, and since you ask for concrete evidence, I see nothing for it now but to comply. If it is sinful, if I am wrong to do it, so much the worse for he who takes the law surely now be charged to me.
Madam, the fault is mine if faults are any.
My husband looking about.
Why worry about the man? He'd say he's getting more noble, and what could leave him by himself? To see us here would fill him with delight, and we saw for his teeth out in his sight.
Nonetheless, do step out further into the hall and see that no one's in it.
That man is a perfect monster, I must admit. I'm simply stunned. I can't get over it.
What? Coming out so soon? How premature! Get back in hiding and wait till you're sure! Stay within and be convinced completely! We mustn't stop till things are proved concretely!
Hell never harbored anything so vicious.
No, Tut, don't be hasty. Try to be judicious. Wait to be certain there's no mistake! No Johnny didn't hold his hand! No!
And now I may at last.
Okay, so I let that go on for so long for a reason here, right? How long does it take Orgone to come out and stop this?
7 minutes.
Yeah, 7 minutes. This guy is making all of the, is that, making verbal love to his wife for 7 minutes before Orgone does anything about it, right? The evidence is pretty concrete from the beginning of the scene. He's right there listening under the table. Why does he let this continue?
He didn't come out until he was insulted.
Yes, it was not the offense to his wife or his son or his daughter or his maid or any member of his family that he was concerned with. It's the insult to himself. When Tartuffe calls Orgone an idiot, then he comes out. Right? That's the thing he can't believe. That's the thing he can't deal with. This guy, whom I have trusted with my household goods, whom I've been feeding, clothing, housing, thinks I'm a fool. Not, this guy is hot for my wife, right? So, if we look at Orgone in the broader context of the whole play, what is it that he's really obsessed with? What purpose does Tartuffe actually serve for him? Is Tartuffe supposed to be a path to heaven for him? What does Tartuffe do for Orgone in the household?
Kind of strokes his ego.
He strokes Orgone's ego, he flatters him. What else does he do? How does Tartuffe relate to the family?
It makes him appear like a charitable, good Christian. He's concerned with appearances primarily.
Okay, it makes Orgone appear like he's a good Christian for taking in this poor, penniless holy man, right? But is this a completely altruistic move on Orgone's part? If we look, for example, at the argument he has with Damis, when Damis has overheard Tartuffe mucking about with Elmire, right, so this is the scene in which Orgone kicks Damis out of the house. Page 176. Damis is angry about Marianne being forced to marry Tartuffe. He says, "You're going to force her to accept his hand? Yes, traitor, and this evening. You know why? To infuriate you. Yes, I defy you all. I am master and you'll obey. And you ingrate, now I'll make you pay for your abuse of him. Kneel on the floor and beg his pardon or go out the door." What's the key word? What are the key words in this?
Traitor, ingrate.
Okay, traitor, ingrate. Traitor and ingrate to who? To Tartuffe?
His son.
Well, no, who is Damis a traitor and ingrate to, though?
His father.
Yeah, to Orgone, right? And why?
Because he wasn't subservient to him like Orgone wanted.
Yeah. I am master here. This is my house. In my house you will obey me. If I tell you, my daughter, to marry Tartuffe, you are going to marry Tartuffe. If I tell you, my son, to kneel down and beg Tartuffe's forgiveness, you are going to do it. So Tartuffe, for Orgone, right? Orgone doesn't care that Tartuffe is a holy man. Tartuffe is a stick he can use to beat his family, right? Tartuffe spies on the family. He tells Orgone all of their secrets, right? When they have little parties, when Orgone is away, Tartuffe tells him all about it, right? So what Orgone really wants, what he really can't let go of, is what?
Power.
Yeah, he is power mad. This is his real delusion, right? It's not religious mania. He's a control freak. He has to be the last word, the ultimate arbiter of anything that happens in his household. Does this sound in any way familiar?
Is he a representation for the king?
Yeah. Orgone is a kind of little absolutist king in miniature, right? Now he just rules over a single household, but his insistence on controlling everything is what forces the crisis, right? Yeah, Ash.
Does that mean the basically the fallout of everything and the mud on Orgone's face at the very end of the play, is it supposed to be a very tongue-in-cheek way to say that the king himself is infallible? Is not infallible?
Well, let's actually look at the way the play ends, because it ends in a really weird and funny kind of way, right? What do we get at the end of this play? How is the Tartuffe crisis finally resolved?
He's set up by the king, in a way.
Uh-huh.
He kind of told on himself. He wanted the king to, kind of screw over Orgone and get all of his possessions, but instead he told on himself and had to pay the consequences.
Yeah. Let's go to the last two pages, page 196. We have the speech of the, we have Tartuffe arguing with the exempt. Can I get a couple of volunteers? Can I get a Tartuffe? All right, Ash, you be Tartuffe. And can I get an exempt? Anybody? All right, James, you be the exempt. So start around line 39, right? Tartuffe to the exempt. Ash, go for it.
Okay. Let's see. You to move into this house. Oh wait, hold on.
Page 196.
Right. Sorry.
It's okay.
Okay. Save me from this whining. I have had my fill. Do execute your orders, and if you will.
I will. I've waited much too long for that. I had to let you have your little chat. It confirmed the facts our monarch knew. That's why, Tartuffe, I am arresting you.
Who? Me?
Yes, you.
You're putting me in jail?
Immediately, and there will be no bail. You may compose yourself now, sir, because we're fortunate in leadership and laws. We have a king who sees into men's hearts and cannot be deceived. So he imparts great wisdom and a talent for discernment. Thus frauds are guaranteed a quick internment. Our Prince of Reason sees things as they are, so hypocrites do not get very far. But saintly men and the truly devout he cherishes and has no doubts about. This man could not begin to fool the king, who can defend himself against the strain of much more subtle predators, and thus, when this craven pretender came to us, demanding justice and accusing you, he betrayed himself. Our king could view the baseness lurking in his coward's heart. Evil like that can set a man apart. And so divine justice nodded her head. The king did not believe a word he said.
Okay, you can stop there. Thank you. So, what's funny about this little speech here, about what's going on here?
It kind of. It kind of sounds like the king's being, by the exempt, that the king is being likened to God a little bit.
Yeah. The king doesn't need any hints or prompting, right, to detect injustice, right? The king, through his superior use of reason, is able to look right into men's hearts and see what they're really like, what they're really all about. And the moment he saw Tartuffe, he smelled a rat, right? The moment he laid eyes on Tartuffe, he knew something wasn't right about this guy. So, does this seem a little bit like kind of over-the-top praise of the king? And so what that there's no way to resolve this little crisis without the king coming in and fixing it in the first place? Are any of you familiar with the phrase deus ex machina?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what's a deus ex machina?
It's when everything's about to go like incredibly awfully wrong. The protagonist gets a new power, or like the protagonist magically gets a new power.
Yeah.
Or like suddenly their friends come in with the ultimate weapon, like
Right.
and stop the bad. I'm thinking
Yeah.
of video in terms of video games.
Sure. And this actually comes from it means God from the machine in Latin. And it actually comes from a common trope in Greek drama, right? There were some playwrights who would end plays where the action had just sort of got too improbable and too difficult to resolve by having a god lowered down to the stage with a crane, waving his hand and fixing everything. Usually, Deus Ex Machina is considered a fault, right? It's usually, well, okay, you didn't know how to end this, so you just had some powerful outside force come in, wave his magic wand, and everything's all better now. To what extent is this, though, a fault in the play, do you think? Do you think that this cheapens the end of the play in any way?
Because like throughout the play, it's like, it seems like the whole point of it is to be against the king, I guess, secretively, without actually saying it. But then at the end of it, it's like raising him.
Well, yeah, I mean, is this completely unqualified praise, though? It sounds like praise, right? But who is it that banned Moliere's play in the first place?
The king.
The king, right, because he listened to the wrong people. Because he listened to the company of the Holy Sacrament rather than to his good friend and counselor Moliere, and banned a play that was completely harmless. Now, of course, what we've got here is the final 1669 version of the play, not the original 1664 version that offended. The speech about the king is added later, right? This was also not part of the original play. We think that in the original play, the family resolved the problem themselves. But having the king step in and fix it, on the one hand, is a way for Moliere to say thank you, right? Thank you for letting me put my comedy back on the stage. But it's also a way for him to make a pretty subtle and, in an absolutist monarchy, really kind of ballsy dig at the king, right? The king is like Orgone. Like Orgone, he listens to the wrong people and uses the wrong people to try to influence his subjects, to try to force his subjects in particular directions. But when he is guided by reason and a sense of justice, rather than the whims of a group of fanatics, then it's easy for him to tell who's right and who's wrong. Yeah.
So, Cleant? I don't know how to...
Cléant, yeah, it's okay.
Okay.
It's
So
okay if you don't speak French. That's, yeah.
Is it possible,
You don't have
since
to.
you said all this, and I'm sorry for interrupting, but is it possible that Cléant could be kind of an avatar for Moliere? Because you say that, he's just reason, no one, and kind of no one's listening to them. So
Yeah.
does that mean that, Tartuffe could be, the council people, Orgone is the king, and he listens to the council people, while Moliere is just sitting in the background going, hey, I'm not doing anything, hey, no.
Yeah, and I think that also, I think that we can sort of bolster that kind of reading as well with the fact, again, that we know that Cléant was added to the play after it was banned. So here's this reasonable guy who provides all kinds of good, intelligent counsel, but no one really listens to him. Now, let's look, before we finish, a little bit more closely at the character of Tartuffe as well. Now, Tartuffe, like every other figure here, has a sort of controlling fixation, a kind of controlling idea. what is Tartuffe's controlling idea?
He seems to be like the embodiment of sin and manipulation.
Okay, but what does he manipulate people in order to get? What does he end up with before he's caught?
He got the land.
He's got the land and the house. What else? What has he had access to all along?
The wife.
Okay, yeah. He tries to get the wife, right? But what else has he been helping himself to?
Orgone's favor.
Orgone's favor. And what does Orgone's favor get him?
His daughter. Or plan to be.
Yeah?
Like, pretty
He's
much.
gonna get him the daughter.
Basically whatever he wants.
Yeah. And he's been, if we look at the scene where Orgone first comes home, right? What does Doreen keep telling him about Tartuffe? What's Tartuffe been up to?
Sitting around drinking his wine.
Yeah, he's drinking Orgone's wine and eating all of his food, right? He's stuffing himself full of the contents of Orgone's pantries. So the name Tartuffe is derived from a French verb, truffer. T-R-U-F-F-E-R. And like a lot of French words, this word pulls double duty, right? It has two meanings. The first is to stuff, right? To stuff something full of something else, right? So this is actually the root word for, like, how many of you have ever eaten a truffle? Right, and a truffle is a piece of chocolate stuffed full of something else, right? Sometimes just more chocolate. But it also means to cheat or to deceive. Right? Much like if you just look at a truffle, you can't tell what's in it. You don't know what it's stuffed with. So Tartuffe stuffs himself full of other people's goods by tricking them into thinking he's a holy man. So really what controls him, what moves him, is greed. Right? There's nothing that's offered to him that he can't turn down. Now, this play works, we've only got a few minutes, and I just want to briefly explain a little bit about how French drama worked in general. Did you notice anything strange about the scenes or the physical action in the play? Are there any stage directions? No, all physical action has to be implied in the language. And one thing that the scene I showed you, right, one thing that they were doing well was picking up on a stage action that's implied in the text, right? Elmire banging on the table, hey, come out, right? Please, end this now. And Tartuffe not getting it and Orgone not doing anything. The other thing to note here is that one of the reasons we don't have scene descriptions or scene changes is that the whole play takes place in a single room, in a single location. Right. This is common for French neoclassical plays that were expected to observe what were called the three unities, right? Now, can anybody guess what the word neoclassical means in the first place?
New classical?
Yeah, so new classical, so what are they writing an imitation of, or what do they think they're writing an imitation of? What do we mean by classical when we talk about classical culture, or classical literature, classical drama?
Victorian era, older than that,
the
Georgian.
Yeah, Greek and Roman, exactly. They're talking about Greek and Roman drama. So what they're trying to do is consciously imitate Greek and Roman drama. They're trying to follow precepts that are laid out by Aristotle in his work, The Poetics. So Aristotle insisted on unity in a play, right? But only on one kind of unity. What he called unity of action, right? That a play should describe one single, consistent line of action with no subplots.
What's
Yeah.
the first word on there?
3.
Oh, sorry.
Yep.
What's the other one?
Unities. Sorry, my terrible handwriting strikes again. However, like from this unity of action, French playwrights extract sort of 2 other unities that they then insist on in plays, right? So unity of action leads to, right, unity of time. So a play must take place within a single 24-hour period. And unity of place. The action of the play should be limited to a single location. Now, some of this is influenced by classical drama, but some of it also took practical considerations into concern. Most early French theaters were converted tennis courts. So they would set the stage up at one end of the indoor tennis court, and the performers would play there on a raised platform. So how wide is a tennis court? Yeah, they're pretty narrow. Even if we're talking about, like 17th century tennis courts, they're quite narrow. So the stage space you're working with is very small. And because there's no backstage area, it's really hard to move set pieces on and off. So it's a lot easier if you just set up for one scene and don't actually have to change between acts, right? You just perform with the set pieces that are already up, that you already get up there before the play starts. And that's part of the reason why we have all of this happening so quickly in a single room. So I add that largely just to explain to you how sort of practical physical considerations can influence literary production, not just cultural, social, economic factors, whatever. All right, so does anybody have any further questions or comments about this play? Okay, so we're going to be reading a couple more selections from Enlightenment philosophy next time. So I have a couple of reading questions for you. Copy them down, photograph them, whatever makes you happy. And we will see you next Tuesday. This is a Tuesday-Thursday class, right? Yes. Yes.
You will get right there.
Yes, do turn in the in-class writings as you go.